All right, Alexander, we have to tackle this latest lawsuit. Let me just open up RT here, which has this article. This lawsuit that alleges Epstein used Bill Clinton friendship to intimidate 15-year-old girl into vicious blank. I mean, I don't really. This is a tough story to cover. And anyway, I'll put a link to this article down below so people can get some sort of insight as to what's going on. We'll be careful with the words that we use.
Yes.
But let me read you the first couple paragraphs, and then you can explain what's going on here, Alexander. And it's, this stuff's getting really nasty, guys, especially with what happened with Netflix and this latest documentary or movie, whatever, with Netflix, which is absolutely also just difficult to discuss and very disturbing. But okay, let's get back to Epstein and Clinton. Disturbing court documents allege that Jeffrey Epstein used his friendship with former U.S. President Bill Clinton to intimidate a 15-year-old girl into a vicious, prolonged blank. The documents claim that the victim, who is only identified as Jane Doe, 15, met Epstein in early 2004 after being groomed by the sex offender's secretary. The teen, who grew up in a poor household in the Midwest, says in the filing that the well-connected financier had name-dropped Clinton as he trafficked her on his so-called Lolita Express private jet and pressured her into being blank. Let me see if there's a quote. There is a quote. Quote, Epstein made clear to Jane Doe, 15, how powerful he was. He made a point of mentioning that he was close with Bill Clinton. The lawsuit against Epstein's estate reads, that's a direct quote. Alexander, we actually had some more passages from the other indictments which allege the same thing, that Epstein was name dropping Clinton a lot. If there was one name that he was dropping all the time as he was going through his grooming process, both him and Ghislaine, it was Bill Clinton. Some more context. Photos came out just the other day with Bill Clinton getting a massage from one of Epstein's victims. I have to preface it and say she was 22 at the time, and I believe she alleges that nothing went on and nothing happened. But, those pictures are there from the Daily Mail UK. Yeah. And we also know that Bill Clinton was on the Lolita Express 26 times, according to logs, 27 times, even though he claims he was on there 4 times. So, Alexander, tough story. We are being careful with the words that we are using, so keep that in mind, everybody. And I will put a link to this story.
Yes, I mean, we are very careful with the words. I mean, again, let us repeat an important point that, of course, so far as I can see, Clinton himself is not being directly accused in this suit of anything that we know about. And even if he were, he is entitled to the presumption of innocence. I mean, I say that in every case. But one thing is indisputable, and this is, I think, the center of this whole story, and it is that Clinton and Epstein were very close friends. Clinton and Epstein were very involved. Clinton was on the Lolita Express. He did visit the island. He went to the ranch. He was a guest of Epstein on numerous occasions, and he continued this friendship, if you can call it a friendship, with Epstein over many years. Clinton was also, of course, a former president of the United States, an extremely powerful man, very influential in the Democratic Party and in US national politics. The mere fact that he was connected to Epstein in this kind of way would have given Epstein leverage over other people, and including this person who we only know of as Jane Doe, who is mentioned in this case. Given that this is so, given that Bill Clinton is himself a highly intelligent man and a lawyer, he should have been aware of this. And since he should definitely have been aware of some of the things that his friend Epstein was up to. Bear in mind also that Epstein pleaded guilty to an offense. Clinton's failure to end his friendship with Epstein and end it in a public fashion and to repudiate all connections with him enabled Epstein to do some of the things that he is alleged to have done, citing Bill Clinton's name. Now, I've spoken very carefully. I've chosen my words very carefully, but I think I've also spoken accurately.
All right. Before we get to discuss real briefly about the Netflix documentary, which let me take a step back and also preface that by saying Netflix also did a very popular documentary on Epstein, where Netflix had, I believe they had 2 eyewitnesses. They definitely had one eyewitness, a groundskeeper, who did say that he saw Clinton on that island.
Yes.
On Epstein's private island 2 times.
Yes.
He said he didn't see anything else, but he did see Clinton in the residence on that island 2 times. I'm not sure if they had 1 or 2 witnesses. I know they definitely had 1. So Netflix has done a documentary on Epstein. We're going to talk about Netflix's other documentary that they're pushing out, which is once again connected to some demonic stuff that they're pushing out. But I want to kind of ask you something more on a legal note with this case. It mentions that Jane Doe is going after the estate. This is going to be the legal play that all of the victims of Epstein and Maxwell are going to put into play. Is that correct? I mean, they're all going to, this is the 500 million, 600 million. They're all going to be looking for a piece of that.
Yes.
What if no one can find that? What's happened? How is this going to work? I mean, because lawyers are going to take this case. I mean, are they going to be doing it, pro bono? Or are they looking to take a piece of the estate? Should they be able to recover something? If there even is something to recover, if something's recovered, does the government take possession of it? I mean, how is this all going to unravel?
It's going to be a massive tangle. Now, a lot of this estate is intangible assets. So there's his mansion in New York, there's his ranch, there's his island, there's his big apartment in Paris. There's things of that kind that you can actually bring claims against. I presume also the shares. I am going to make a guess, by the way, that he's got much more money hidden away in all kinds of places. He's probably given out money to various, shell companies and friends. There's also the question of what kind of money Ghislaine Maxwell has and whether that's Epstein's money. So lots of things there. But I there will be some assets that you can attach a claim to. And I am pretty sure that these lawyers are acting on a no-win, no-fee basis. In other words, they will be acting on the basis that they will recover what they can and they will be paid whatever fees they can out of Epstein's estate, out of the winnings. So I'm sure that is what is going to happen. But you're absolutely right. The litigation is going to go on for years. There'll be all the victims, bringing their own different claims. Hopefully, at some point, they will all come together. That's quite likely, and it would be in their interests to do. And at some point, I hope and expect that the government will try and step in and will try to organize a distribution of the assets, if you like, out of Epstein's estate, or at least what part of the estate survives and can be found. It's rather troubling, by the way, that hasn't happened until now. And again, it does make one wonder why it is taking so long. And I wonder whether problems in the Southern District of New York, which you've talked about in the past, might have something to do with this. But, I think that is where this is going to come. So we have the criminal case, which is now clearly centered on Ghislaine Maxwell. And we also have these various civil claims, which are being brought by the various victims. And I'm going to make a prediction. And again, I'm choosing my words very, very carefully. I would be extremely surprised, but I'm absolutely sure that more victims' claims are coming, and several of these victims are going to refer to Bill Clinton.
Yeah. So it would be like some sort of class action eventually, years down the line. Yeah.
Yes, eventually I expect it to coalesce into a class action, just perhaps not exactly, but something in that nature. Something in that nature, and then we will see it all, as it will come together. And as I said, Bill Clinton is in the center of it. It will be in the middle of it, not, if not as a perpetrator, then certainly as a witness. And can I just say something again? And I really, well, maybe not as a witness, but I mean, this is the important point about him. He got very close to Jeffrey Epstein. Given the kind of person Jeffrey Epstein was, it was inevitable that he would use Clinton's name. And by getting so close to Epstein, Clinton enabled that. That's what we have to take from this case, because that's what it says. That's what this claim says. And I am sure others are going to make it also. By being an enabler, even if an unintended one, and again, I'm being very careful, Clinton is, at least morally, and again, I'm being very careful, at least morally responsible for some of the things that happened, given that he was a former president of the United States, an extremely powerful man, very influential, very well connected, and a former lawyer, married to a wife who is a lawyer also, by the way, and who should have understood very clearly what was, what the implications of his relationship to Epstein was. Bear in mind that another person, another powerful person who saw Epstein, Donald Trump, said all of what was going on in Epstein's place was a cesspit, and he refused to have anything to do with Epstein and completely disassociated himself from Epstein. That was the right thing to do. Clinton didn't do that. He never let that happen. And that's why his name is appearing in this lawsuit, and I predict it will appear in others also.
All right, real quick, just so we can kind of connect some dots, because I really think there are dots to connect. Everything that we've seen from this Epstein story and the disturbing facts that have surfaced from this Epstein story that have been going on for the past 10, 15 years, I think they've now come to a point where the public just can't take it anymore. And I think that's being expressed through this Netflix documentary, which is sexualizing young girls. I mean, there's just no other way to describe it. I mean, I'm not even comfortable saying the words.
Yes.
For what I just said. Really, I'm just not even comfortable saying these words. But once again, you have the powerful corporations, the Silicon Valley corporations, that are firmly behind the Clinton machine and the Obama machine. You have Netflix, a company where I believe, Susan Rice is on the board of Netflix. Susan Rice connected to Obama. You have the Obama's production company involved with Netflix to the tune of around $60 or an $80 million deal. You have the Netflix documentary on Epstein. You have an eyewitness seeing Clinton on the island. And here you have Netflix pushing out this documentary, and their agenda is very clear from the images that they're showing us, very clear what they're looking to do. And they're looking to push things to a point where I think people can't take it anymore. They've been bending the bar, and I think it's now broken. I mean, we just can't take these images and these stories anymore. People are very, very upset, Alexander. And to me, the overarching theme is these are all the elitists that they seem to be pushing us to this satanic, demonic direction. And I really hope that people are going to start to push back. And I really feel that people all over the world, but given the fact that this is an American rooted, the story is rooted in America, I think the American public has had enough.
Yes, I I think it has. I think the reactions that we see whenever, the subject of Epstein and Maxwell come up speak for themselves, actually. I mean, I think people are outraged about this, just as they're outraged about Netflix, and they're right to be outraged by Netflix. I wasn't just outraged. I was absolutely stunned, shocked, disgusted, appalled. I'm running out of adjectives. I saw these images of this film. Now, can I just quickly say, in parenthesis, that it may be that they have completely misrepresented what this film is supposed to be all about, which is a French film, apparently made by a director in France who has a completely different agenda. But that is not what these images that Netflix published of this film show. These images seem to point to the film, well, being used or promoting certain things, and there are images of girls on it, which I just found not just disturbing, but absolutely and completely shocking. And it seemed to me that it was obviously intended to attract a certain kind of audience. That's all I can say. I mean, it was the kind of audience of some of the people who perhaps, shall we say, ended up in Epstein's parties. I mean, it's that kind of thing. I mean, it was utterly stunning. And given how people feel about Epstein, which is, as I said, we experience it here on the Duran, we see it for ourselves. I mean, it does suggest to me that both the people at Netflix, who have been, by the way, remarkably slow to understand the upset and the worry and the shock of what that people feel towards not what Netflix has done. I mean, Netflix has been dithering and coming up with explanations and excuses, and it's been very, very slow to try and really address all of this and give an apology, say we made a terrible mistake, we were all horribly wrong. So it suggests they don't really understand it. And not only do they not really understand it, at some fundamental level, deep down, one almost senses that they don't really care what people think. That, this is the sort of thing that they feel, they can do, that they can put up these images. And, it's basically two fingers to everyone. I mean, that's almost the impression I got from this, not both from the images and from the way Netflix responded to it. And can I just say again, you're absolutely right. Epstein is an elite scandal. It's a scandal of elite people preying upon very young people who are not elite people. You mentioned at the beginning of this program Jane Doe's background, and that is absolutely typical of the type of young girl that Epstein and his circle were preying on. So it's an elite scandal, and as I have repeatedly said, it's a scandal that involves Democrats. I'm not saying, that this is only, but it's overwhelmingly the kind of people who seem to have been associated with Epstein in the United States were people who are within the Democratic Party, circle. And Netflix ought to have been particularly careful in this situation because politically, they belong to the same circle. They are also a part of the world, the information world, which is known to favor the Democratic Party. So, I mean, they have behaved in an extraordinary, crass, arrogant, elitist way, in a way that, I'm sorry to say this, reminds me a lot of the way people who were involved with Epstein also behaved. And Bill Clinton, I think, needs to consider his position very carefully, and I'm sure he's getting advice.
All right, this is a geopolitical show and a political show, and we do a lot of analysis. So let me just say one last thing, and I'd like your comment, and we'll wrap it up, Alexander. First, Susan Rice sells Netflix shares ahead of Biden VP's announcement. This was August 7. Former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, a Netflix director, sold some of her shares of the video streaming company worth $305,323 this week as speculation swirls that she is among the candidates to be Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's running mate. Okay, we know the result of that, but she sold shares in Netflix on August 7. That's just a side note, a footnote for people to look at. My comment is this. I just went to Twitter as you were speaking, Alexander, and I looked at Obama's Twitter feed, who has a relationship with Netflix, and I looked at Susan Rice's Twitter feed, who has a relationship with Netflix. There is not one tweet that I saw. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll tweet it after this video. We're filming this on a Friday evening. Maybe they'll tweet it after this video. You know where I'm going with this, Alexander. There's not been one tweet from either of the two condemning what Netflix did. Alexander.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And it speaks again of what we would say. Culture of impunity, extraordinary arrogance, at the very least, arrogance, complete indifference to the feelings of the American people, which, as I said, over the course of the Epstein affair, have been made incredibly, incredibly clear. But can I say something else? Perhaps a reluctance, or rather a determination, not a reluctance, to bury all of this, not to talk about, the Netflix affair, not to talk about Epstein, not to talk about any of these things that were going on, even though they do concern people. I would, at this moment in time, I think this is a big story. I think this is a very big story. I think Epstein is a very big story. I think Netflix is a very big story. I think Susan Rice has a connection to Netflix. I think Barack Obama has a connection to Netflix. I think the least we can expect of these important people is that they should come forward and tell us what they think about it. The fact that they're not, as I said, says all the things that I've just said about.
I mean, if you're a public figure and you pass yourself off as being so morally above the fray, and a person of such integrity like Obama and Susan Rice pass themselves off to be, you would resign if you were on the board of Netflix. I would resign from Netflix.
Well, absolutely.
If I was on the board. I would call. I think it's Hastings. I think his name is Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix. I would call him and I would just be like, look, no, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. And if I was Barack Obama and I had the production company, I would send out at least a tweet and say, we're absolutely embarrassed and ashamed at this imagery for this documentary.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what they should do. Can I just make this point? It's the same as what we were discussing with Clinton. If you don't do that, you become in effect an enabler. And that's I think what these people need to understand, because maybe they do understand it, maybe they just don't care, which would be extremely worrying. But bear in mind, if Barack Obama or Susan Rice come out and make those kind of comments, then Netflix will pay attention and will not do these things. If Barack Obama and Susan Rice say nothing, then given that it seems that Netflix cares more about what they say than they care about what, millions of people who watch them say, these kind of things will continue. That's how it seems to me.
Yeah. All right. We'll leave it there. Just troubling stuff, demonic stuff.
Very, 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 very bad stuff. I mean, clearly, well, I think that's almost an understatement, actually. I mean, there is a terrible reality under the surface in all of this, which is extremely disturbing.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's just leave it there and keep an eye out for our next videos, guys. All right. Take care.